Hey everyone, this is Barrett here from Cypress College Cyber Club. Back again with another NetLab video. This one's for Security Plus Objective 3.1, which is analyze and differentiate among types of malware. Mostly going to be talking about reverse shells in this lab. So this is Lab 9, analyze and differentiate types of malware. Now this lab is from 2003, but still very relevant as far as concept. So you're going to see that instead of the latest edition of Kali, it's just running some older backtrack editions of the operating system. But not to worry, the concepts are still strong. So anybody following along at home with your own PDF, as always, check out the contents, see what you're working with. We're going to be using Netcat and Ncat. Both are very similar in ways. We're going to be using Netcat to send a reverse shell, also Netcat, and then we'll also be sending a bash shell to a Windows machine using Netcat. So we'll be accessing a Windows machine, but also then accessing a Linux machine. So also, always remember to go over the objective, get familiar with the tools. That way, as you're working on the objective, you'll have a better understanding. And very similar topology to most of the other videos. Today, we're going to be working on the Backtrack 5 machine and the Windows 7 machine. So only two machines you need to log into. I've already got mine logged in. But remember on this page here, it will go ahead and tell you exactly which machines to log in for this lab. So get those logged in first. You'll find the details also in the lab report. And that will bring us to the start of section 1. So what is a reverse shell? It's a type of shell in which a target machine communicates back to the attacking machine. So and the attacking machine has a listening port open for basically a listening port to receive the connection from the target machine. So that could be a code or command execution. And in most cases, like we'll see in this lab, it's going to be executing the actual command shell. So the very first thing we want to do is come into the Backtrack 5 machine. We're going to launch terminal. And we are going to start up the Apache web server. And we could verify that that has started by doing netstat. We're going to grep for port 80. So we're looking for services running on port 80. So we see here, okay, the Apache server is launched. It's listening. It's active. So let's go now to the Windows 7 machine. We will, guess we could use Firefox here, or Internet Explorer is fine. We're going to go to, basically navigating to the Backtrack 5 machine. And there you go. You have a very basic default index HTML that's loading up on that web server. And back to the Backtrack machine. It wants us to pull, I believe, Netcat. Yes, so Netcat is residing on this machine in a pen test folder in Windows binaries. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy Netcat from the pen test Windows binaries folder, tools, nc.exe. And now when you hit spacebar, now we're going to tell it where to copy that to. And we're going to move that to var that /www. And that's going to be the location of the Apache web server. And if you even do ls var www for listing, we see there's a couple other things in there. There's the index HTML file, which you see right here. And then also we've just added netcat nc.exe. So much like we did in another lab, in just using HTTP for transferring files, we're going to download Netcat straight away from that web server onto the Windows 7 machine. Okay. That has downloaded. And I believe it asks us to use Internet Explorer because it usually defaults to saving to the Windows drive, but we need to see where that downloaded to. Okay, so I actually put it in downloads. So if you're doing this lab and nc.exe gets placed in the downloads folder, what you want to do is just drag that over to the Windows folder, because this is going to allow us to execute that at the command line or at the command shell. And actually in the lab, it gives you a excuse me, a red box warning about that as well. Okay, so we've got Netcat, and we can confirm by doing nc-h to get help. Okay, so this means we successfully downloaded it. We dropped it into the Windows folder. So now we can use Netcat from command line. So like I was saying before, with a reverse shell, the target machine would somehow be forced in creating, setting itself up to be a listener. So nothing nefarious really happening here. This is strictly us doing this as an example. But so what we're doing here is we're saying netcat, and the -L is for listen mode. -P is setting the port to be 443. So when we hit enter, you just see that blinking cursor. But this basically just means that, okay, this machine right now is listening on 443 for any other netcat commands from another machine. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Backtrack. No pun intended. We actually want to set the listener in this part of the lab to be coming from the Backtrack 5 machine. So let's go ahead and do that here. Once again, we're setting it to listen. We're setting the port to 443. Okay, very good. So basically the Backtrack machine is like, I am ready and waiting to receive anything on this port. So now back at the Windows 7 machine, we're going to netcat. We're going to enter in the IP address of the Backtrack machine. And we're going to say, okay, port 443. We're going to run -E. And remember, you could always reference the help file. -E up here is for inbound program to execute. And even in the help file it says this is dangerous. But we're going to execute command.exe, which what you're looking at here, this shell is command.exe. So when we hit enter and we come back, we see that we are now in a shell. Let's see what the lab has us do here. So yeah, so if we do ipconfig, we're looking at the Windows IP configuration. If we run net user administrator, now this is a way that it's kind of showing that once we have access to that reverse shell, there's all sorts of things that you could do. And in this situation, it's saying that this is kind of because this lab is dated. It's going over Windows 7. It's talking about how in Windows 7 or Vista, the administrator account is disabled by default. So this is showing how once you have this reverse shell, you could actually, whoops, wrong screen. You could actually activate that. And it tells you the command completed successfully. And this is something kind of behind the scenes. So if you were able to get this reverse shell either by maybe sending some malware and they ran it, they would have no idea. It would be running in the background. So you just, activated the administrator there. And if you check again, you will now see account active. Yes. And then the lab shows we can actually change that password as well. So this would be a way to kind of make sure that you've had access continually into this machine. Okay, so we've done what we want to do here, so we'll just go ahead and exit. And that ends the first part of this lab. And the second part is going to be very similar. We're going to use Ncat, which it's not much different than Netcat. Netcat is often termed as a risk program by like antivirus scanners. One thing that is pointed out is that Ncat may possibly slide under the radar a little bit in terms of that, but otherwise they're very similar. So we're going to go on the Windows 7 machine. Let's go ahead and do Ncat help. So you'll find the list. A lot of the options are going to be very similar as well, you'll find. And once again, very similarly, we're going to, I'm just going to go and clear this screen. We're going to run Netcat on the Backtrack 5 machine. We're going to set it to listen on port 22 this time. And then we will go back to the Windows 7 machine, ncat-c 192.168.100.3. And remember this IP here, if you ever need to double check, just be sure that is the Backtrack 5 machine, .3. We're going to execute command.exe again. Target machine refused. Interesting. I forgot the port number. Why didn't you tell me? There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to press up, move back over. There we go. So we see the blinking. It's obviously probably made a connection here. There we go. So, like I said, very similar to Netcat. Do ifconfig, Windows IP configuration. And this time it's showing us where also the guest user account is usually was not activated. Where is it? Account active. No. So let's go ahead and activate that. Okay. Net user guests. You'll see now the account is active. And we'll go ahead and change that password again. So the kind of use case for an attacker on this would be if somebody wasn't paying attention and didn't notice it, all of a sudden a guest account or an administrator account was showing up on their login screen, then they basically, the attacker would just have continual access to their machine whenever they wanted because they have the password. All they have to do is just connect. Okay, so that ends section 2. This is a very quick lab. Section 3, we're to send a bash shell to a Windows machine using Netcat. So we're going to basically do the other way around. So you'll see how we can access a bash shell within Windows. So go ahead and clear this. Whoops, I am still in the shell. Let me exit. Clear that. Let's clear this. Okay. So now on the Windows machine, we're going to set this up to listen on port 443. Come back to backtrack. We're going to run ncat 192.168.100.5. And remember, this is basically the IP of the system we're connecting to, which .5 is the Windows 7. In this situation, if this were packaged in malware or like a Trojan virus, this would be running in the background, and then the Backtrack 5 machine ran the malicious software, and then it connects to that target, or to the attacker in this case. So it's saying, okay, yes, I do want to connect to you on port 443, and I'm going to execute my bash shell, which in Linux, this is basically the equivalent of cmd.exe. So we'll come back here now, and it notes this in the lab in this little red box area. You won't notice a command prompt like here. You won't see root add bt, but if you just go ahead and do ls for list, you have access. Or like the lab says, we'll do ifconfig. Here's a network adapter, IP information for that machine. Who am I? Root. So you know you have root access on this shell. ls for listing. Now, if you wanted to dig around for passwords, you could cat etc password. Keep in mind, this file doesn't actually retain passwords. It's more retains the usernames listed on the left here. But the actual password files will be located in etc shadow. And these are, of course, hashed. So up here is the root hash that you could save this and then crack this offline to attempt to actually get the password. Then another thing here we could do, much kind of similarly to what we did to the Windows machine, is we add a user. So if you do ID hacker, it has a user ID, it has a group ID. And it's looking like the next part of lab just wants us to verify the connection here. So we're going to do netstat, we're going to grep for the port 443. And you'll see that this connection is established between the two systems. And that concludes Lab 9, analyzing and differentiating types of malware. And in this case, we didn't actually look at technically any malware, but it's useful because this is basically usually the end goal of malware. It's to gain a reverse shell through the process of somebody clicking on something, whether it's hidden, they think it's a PDF file or an image or an MP3 file, but actually this reverse shell is connecting. And this is essentially how botnets are created. You hear the term zombie computers and botnets to do DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service. They're essentially using your computer. They're using your connection, many computers around the world, and attacking one specific place. So that concludes this lab. Thanks a lot for watching.